So let's wrap up talking about those four basic characteristics of light by talking briefly about how the four are related and how making a change in one area, either because you choose to or you're forced to, will almost inevitably affect some of the other areas.
So let's conclude this section by talking about how all these four facets relate to each other, because they do interact. Don't forget, every light you use will have a direction, quality, quantity, and colour. Now this is all very straightforward as long as you've only got the one light. You can say, right, there's the sun, here's my exposure, the sun is doing what I want it to do, it's in the right place, it's got the right quality, there's enough of it, I've got the exposure right, and my white balance is set correctly, so I've got the right colour. Job done. Things get complex when you alter some facet of that light, or you add more than one light, because the four facets are interlinked. Now, of course, we've already seen how changing direction obviously affects distance, and then that's linked into things like inverse square law. That distance obviously also affects quantity, of course. If a light is much further away, less of it will fall on the subject, so you've got less light to play with. So straight away, it's obvious that direction and quantity are going to be linked in some way. We also know that direction, in terms of how far away a light source is, will affect how large it is in relation to the subject, and that will affect its quality. So just because you change one aspect, you must also bear in mind you might be changing other aspects. I'll give you a couple of examples here. So here I am shooting outside on a bright sunny day. I've got my flash guns with me as location lights. Now because I am bouncing the light off this silver umbrella to make the light softer, that is using up some of the quantity of light, because of course the light isn't just coming from a small point and going out towards the subject. It's got to go into this umbrella and be bounced around and then head out to the subject. So it's got to cover a greater distance. That is eating up the quantity. So to compensate for this, I've added 2 more flash guns. I've tripled the amount of power output. Okay, so straight away, by changing the quality of light, making the light softer, I've then had to adjust the amount of quantity I've got to compensate for that. The same would happen if I were to add, say, diffusion to the front of this umbrella or shoot through a softbox. If I put a layer of white shoot-through material onto something, that will soften the light by scattering the light rays around, but it will eat up some of the light, so I'll need more quantity to compensate. With colours, for example, I could be shooting in an indoor situation where the light is all tungsten, so I set my camera to match that tungsten light. I set my white balance for tungsten and everything looks normal. The problem is there isn't very much light, so it's very hard to freeze movement. So I bring my flashes in. Great, my flashes will give a short pulse of light, that will freeze some movement. The problem is my flashes are of course set for more like 5000 Kelvin, and I'm way down here set on the camera for something like 2000 Kelvin. So what I can do is I can put what's called a gel, in this case an orange gel, onto my flashes. That will turn the light from these flashes from being about 5000 down to 2800, 3000 Kelvin, and they will now be the same colour as the ambient light in the room. So you don't get a massive change of colour between something that's lit by the flash and something that's lit by the ambient light. So don't forget, all these 4 facets of light are interlinked. Okay, you can't escape the fact that altering something in one area will affect something in the other. Terribly sorry, that's how it is. There's no real way of cheating it, but as with all these basic underlying laws of photography, once you understand how they work, you can then manipulate them to your advantage and use them to take the pictures you want to take.
Don't forget, this video is part of my entire lighting course, which I'm releasing week by week on YouTube for free because I'm just nice like that. There's also a complete technical basics course out there. Links are below in the comments. If you like what you're seeing, hit like, subscribe obviously to keep up with notifications and things, and stick any questions you've got in the comments below. And I'll see you next week when we start taking things a bit more complicated.